I'm continuing the eagle quilt, working on the wings, and I have worked on quite a bit of the cross hatching and working on trying to finish this today. Now I know I started the video yesterday, but I have some other ideas that I want to bring out. If you've noticed from the video yesterday, and some have probably wondering why I have these two items down here. This pattern comes in as a set, the tail feathers and the eagle wing feathers. And when you put this on the screen, it's only oriented in one way, and that's fine. You have to adjust it as the wings go around. And what I did was I drew a boundary around one of these wedge-shaped parts of this quilt. And I converted the boundary to a pattern, and then I moved it out of the way. And I drew another one on the other side. This one fits on this side. This shape fits on this side. And then I put the pattern, the wing pattern, in each one and adjusted them to fit. And now what I can do is I can rubber stamp one of these, whichever side I'm working on, and I can move it into and adjust it to fit in one of these boundaries. The reason I put it this way is because sometimes it's very difficult to adjust a pattern to fit into an angular shape. So I found it was a lot easier just to make this horizontal, put the pattern in there, adjust it to fit, and I'll rubber stamp it. Now, here's two things I've learned on this, and I've always in the old programs, you right click, select a pattern, you right click, and you do a rubber stamp. But now this is still in your way. You have to escape to move that out of the way. Okay. I have found that in using some of the new icons we have available. Here's the rubber stamp icon. I can click on it. I can select this and click on rubber stamp, and it makes a copy of it, but I don't have a drop down menu to get rid of before I move this. So I can just move this up and rotate it. I'll have to adjust this a little bit to fit. It's going to be somewhat too large. And just rotate it around some to fit. I have this pattern adjusted so that it fits in that fairly well, but down here I'm going to need to move one of these just slightly. So what I'm going to do is make an adjustment to this. Okay, I've selected this pattern and I used divide, and I divided the pattern at that point. I'm also going to divide it right here at this point. Now I can select the individual line. I can change my end anchors to end, or the anchors to end anchor. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to move this line down so that it's in the boundary. I need to turn off the end snap. It's so that it's inside of this boundary, just like that. Okay, this one is the same way. If I can select it, I'm going to move it just this way. It's inside of there. Now this should be adjusted so that it will stitch within that boundary without stitching outside the boundary line. I have this pattern all adjusted to stitch out. Okay, I did some readjusting on this. Now I have it all ready to stitch out. Okay, so I have this boundary set up here, and I put the pattern in there and adjusted it. As I go around the wings on the left and the right, these segments get smaller and smaller. They get shorter. They're the same out here because there's more material way out in this distance, out around the edge. And that's why when I make a boundary and I put the pattern in there, it looks like it's way too large for that area, and it really is, because that part that gets the wing pattern put in it is getting smaller as I go towards the bottom of the eagle. Then the tail feathers will fit in this area. I'm back to doing the arcs, and as I've said before, what I do is I mark the points on the quilt, and I use P2P line, and I click a point, then I go to another point, I click it, I hit stop, then I click it again, and then I pick a point, go to the next point, I click that, and I click stop. Now, after I have clicked these points, I'm going to get out of P2P line. After I have clicked these points, I go and use Alt A, and I make sure my end snap is on, and I can snap there, there, and then to a point right here. There's another one. Then like this, and it draws a nice smooth arc for me. Let's suppose that if while I was doing this, and I'm going to go and click on another set of these points. I'm going to start here. First I'm going to go and get my P2P line, and here's my first point, and I'll go to my second point, then click stop, and then click, and then go to my third point and click stop. Now let's suppose that in the program we had an icon that we could just click on up here or down the side, and we click on that icon, and it would let us use the machine head to draw an arc. So when I click this point, and this point, instead of having these two straight line segments, it would automatically give me the arc. Now to me, that would be a really good update improvement to the program. I'm going to go and click another one, click stop, click, and click stop. Now I'll go in then and use Alt A. I'll exit out of the P2P line, and I'll use Alt A. End snap is on. I'll snap here, snap, snap. Now that draws my arc. Then I'll go here, here, and here, and here I'll have my arcs. Then all I need to do is go in and delete these P2P segments. Delete those because I won't need them. And that will leave my arcs. But wouldn't it be an improvement if we had the ability to do that just with the machine head? Click on an icon, click 3 points, and it would draw the arc just like this without me having to go and make another step to do this. So now I'm ready to stitch this out. Now another improvement that I would like to see or at least to me it's an improvement. When we have a slanted, odd-shaped boundary to put a pattern in, sometimes it's very difficult to adjust that pattern to fit correctly. When we have a pattern that's oriented like this, horizontally, then it's easy to have the handles, they're oriented the same way as the pattern is, and it's easy to make changes and adjustments. But when they're slanted, it is difficult. If we had it to where the handles was the same orientation as the pattern and the boundary, that would be an improvement. You see over here where these are slanted, my anchors are still oriented the same way horizontally. So if there was a way to rotate those, or if when you clicked on a pattern that was not oriented horizontally, the anchors would be oriented the same way as the pattern is oriented. The same idea holds true to a pattern that is vertically. See, I've just put this on the screen, and if I use the wedges, it's easy to adjust the pattern in both dragging it down or up, and the same thing with the side handles. But it's very difficult to do that with patterns that are in a boundary that is slanted. Okay, I've taken my boundary, I drew a boundary, then I turned it into a pattern, and I moved it, and I made the boundary, or the pattern that was a boundary, I've made it vertical, and then I put the pattern in that, and I adjusted the pattern to fit. Now, the only thing I might do to this would be to divide this and move this one line in slightly, but this might be a way that this can be accomplished. Then all I have to do now is select the whole thing, rotate it around, rotate everything around. Then I can move this back into place to fit in the quilt. And all I'd have to do then would be adjust it to fit in the area, because it's already sized. And then I could just move it in there. I don't know. I may try that and see if that works better than what I've been doing. Now, I can actually shorten what I'm doing by a couple of clicks, because I can click this point and then another point here, click stop, click a point, then another point right at this point, and then I'll go do my arcs. So I have eliminated one point that I didn't need to click. I just clicked this point, and this point. This is midpoint between the two ends. Now I use Alt-A and draw my arc. Click there, there, and there, and I'm all finished. Now I'll just delete my P2P lines and leave me with my arc. And sometimes this can be difficult. Use the greater than or less than keys until you get the one you want, then delete it. I had to do some dividing of this pattern to adjust this side, this area here, and this area. So now I'm going to go ahead and stitch out this pattern.